Now that our canopy is all nicely masked up, polished up, we're all sorted, we want to just do a couple of final touches to our cockpit area and painting up our ejector seats. So first off, let's grab ourselves a nice decent brush. Size 0 should do it nicely. Got a bit of water. What I'm going to use some of Citadel's Abaddon Black. And what we're going to do, we're just going to paint up and trim up all our edges to our canopy set, well, our cockpit area, shall we say, right? Bit of water, bit of Abaddon Black, and all we're going to do, what I like to do, is we want to paint up. If you remember, we did some scratch building here of some Styrian plastic, so we don't see any nasties there. And we're just painting up these edges just along here, because what we want is, if you look through the canopy, we want to see black, we don't want to see a mess, just like so. There we go, we've just tidied up now all around the cockpit area, just so that when we come in and put our cockpits on, if we look through, or any kind of chance of seeing through any of this clear plastic or anything like that, we're going to see black rather than it being a little bit untidy. But that is that. What we want to do is we want to do the same sort of weathering that we did when we built the cockpit area, and we did that. To be honest with you, I forgot what I used actually. I think it was one of our filters, maybe. I think it was probably something like our P404 grey for bright white. I think we basically used a filter on our black areas just to bring them out and weather them up, and we just want to give it a quick another touch of that just to finish off that bit of weathering, and then that is ready to have the canopy on. But before we do that, what we also need to do, we need to get our seats done. Now this is going into sort of like painting, and I do want to get a nice video out there on basically painting up miniatures and stuff, which I am in the process of doing. So I don't really want to kind of harp on too much about this, because it's kind of like a big subject area to kind of teach painting, but just to kind of sort of quickly show you, what I like to do is I like to get a bit of Kestrel Grey by Citadel, and do the same sort of process of, you know, add a bit of water and then sort of mix it up. I mean, you can use a palette, but sometimes I like just to use the lid. And what we want to do, we just want to paint those areas where we want to put lighter colours. So for instance, we're talking our pull cord here, which we're going to be doing yellow and black. Right, getting yellow down is quite a problem when you're painting onto black. There's our seats as well, which we're going to do a nice green. If we paint these up as well, this nice light grey by Citadel, what's going to basically happen is, let's just bring you in. Hopefully, as you can see, I'm just painting up all these areas that are going to be light colours, because as I say, you come in with our Everland Sunset yellow onto our pull cord neat, it's going to take forever to kind of get that to nicely paint all nice and yellow. You're going to be putting about 3, 4, 5 coats down, but what happens is when you come along and you put a nice grey down, you're basically priming the surface. The grey goes down really nice on stuff like black, so then what's going to happen is when we put our yellow down, it's going to go down a lot more nice, and we're going to have better coverage throughout if we do this. And as much as you might think, oh no, you're putting down one colour, then you're putting down another colour, trust me, you put one coat of this grey down on our black, and then you're probably talking 1, 2, maybe coats of yellow, rather than putting literally about 3, maybe 4 coats of yellow down on top of black. So it does save time, and it just brings out the colours a lot better and nicer than if we didn't prime this. So I'm just going to carry on priming this up. Right then, as you can see, we've nicely primed this up now, ready for lighter colours, like for example our Everland Sunset. It's basically a yellow, but instead of it being a yellow, it's basically, it looks a little bit dirty, and that's why I like to use this yellow. And hopefully what you're going to see now is what I've been harping on about. Right. We can now come along with our yellow and paint this onto our pull cord, like so. Hopefully I'm seeing this. And there we go. That now doesn't need another coat. That is now all done. Great coverage because we've got that primer on there. If that was just going straight onto black, we'd need a couple more coats. So that is, you know, the whole benefits of what I'm trying to explain here with using a bit of a grey primer when you paint. As annoying, as pointless as it might seem, it does actually work out really nice in the end. Alright, so I'm just going to crack on with the rest of this, and then I'm going to show you some weathering. As you can see, what I've done is I've just put on the main base coats that has brought out our belts and our ejector pull cords and everything. It's just a nice bit of flat painting. What we want to do is we want to liven this up, not make it look so flat, and a bit of weathering and all that kind of stuff. And what I'm going to do for this in particular is I'm going to use the Earthshade by Citadel. It's a wash, and what it simply is we just simply, not really needing to be that careful, paint on all our painting that we've just done. Leave the black alone. Don't worry if we go on the black, but just, you know, leave it alone. We're going to paint that, well, wash that with something else, and you just whack this all over, and what it will do is it will just give everything that little bit of life. It will go into nooks, crannies, detailed areas, just to bring them out, make them look a little bit less than just flat, and bring out everything nicely, like so. As you can see, hopefully we're not as kind of flat and plain as we was. Now that's going to need a little bit of time to dry, and just let that nicely flow. Make sure you've got it where you want it. Make sure you've got it on the straps, because there's a nice bit of detail on these photo etch straps that you want to bring out, like so. So as you can see now, that has kind of brought it alive. We need it to dry first because it will kind of slightly change as it dries, but what we want to do as well is, because that was such a dark colour, our black areas aren't really going to come out so much. So what I like to do, I mean, we could do a bit of silver dry brushing here, but I'm trying to just keep it a little bit simple. But I've just shaken up some P404 grey for bright white, which remember we're going to use for our cockpit area as well, so we may as well do that while we're opening this up. Right, so we open it up, we dip in, and what we want to do, we just want to brush this on nicely all over our black areas, just to bring out all that lovely detail that we've going on there as well. Right, and this is going to act as a really nice kind of dusty looking bit of a wash. And what we can also do is, if we're not quite happy, we can rub this away later to blend it in and make it look a bit more better, and play with it to however we want to have it weathered or not weathered and all those kind of things. So I'll just get a bit underneath there. Right, now what we need to do now is we need to leave this to dry, these both washes, and then we can kind of play around with it a bit just to kind of get it weathered the way we want it. Right, now before I kind of just show you how to blend in our seats and get all that wash all nice and better, a bit of scratch building. Now, totally slipped my mind, but there are supposed to be these kind of nice sort of green covers that go into our cockpit detail. Forgot all about, and actually on this, the Hobby Boss kit, well, there isn't actually anything to represent these covers, so I'm going to make them myself, so a bit of scratch building. However, as I say, if I kind of remembered it, I would have probably done something like milli putty or something like that at the beginning, rather than where we are now with the cockpit all in, we're all basically painted up. So I want to do something that's easy enough to kind of work around the fact that our cockpit's in and it's painted. So just remember that in mind. I would have used something like milli putty and created this, but what we're going to do, we're going to use Tamiya masking tape, as you probably guessed, because I've already just done one. And what we can do, we can just rip off a bit, and then we can just apply it onto our front cover like so, and then we can sort of play around with it, maybe try and add a little bit of a crease here and there, you know, nothing major, not like massive creases, you know, remember to try and keep it in scale and stuff. Right, and then we can just try and follow it around, get it to bite down. Use the stickiness to actually get it stuck down, and then we want a nice kind of new clean number 11 blade, and then we can just cut into this so that we can then cut our shape in like so, hopefully as you're seeing. I'm just going to turn this around so I can actually cut it easier. Right then, as you can see, our masking tape's nicely down, but we want to add a bit of detail to the masking tape. So what we can do is we can kind of give the illusion of some sort of screws, rivets, that kind of thing, and just go all the way around the edges and poke in some nice little rivets to give us some detail. Right then, there we go, we're all nicely kind of basically got our masks in place that are giving us our detail. So what we can do now is we can come along and give it our first coat of paint before I cut away. Right, so nice bit of water. I'm going to use Zandri Dust by Citadel. It's a nice kind of almost like a sandy colour, but we're going to build it up into something a bit more worn, darker. But this is just going to be our first bit of a base colour. Right, there's our first base colour down. Now we're going to be putting all sorts of washes and potentially highlights and stuff on this, but we need that to dry, so let's put that to one side for a bit, which hopefully, bringing you back again, hopefully, as you can agree that as much as I'd have liked to have done, say, milli putty or something like that to mould in this fabric onto here, hopefully, as you can agree, although it's not the best way and result, shall we say, it's better than what was on here, which was nothing. So hopefully you'll agree on that. So what we want to do now, just get some thinners for washes, and I just need to get another paintbrush, get us my wash paintbrush, and what we're going to do is we're going to dip into our MIG Productions thinners for washes, which is basically just some nice thinners like white spirits, turpentine, that sort of thing. Nice clean paper towel. We're going to get our seat here and we're going to dip into our MIG Productions thinners, and what we're going to do, we're going to rehydrate our filter that we put on here. Right, and so as we can rehydrate it, we can then blend it and sort of like clean it up a bit, because this is a little bit maybe too much of our filter on here. So what we're basically doing is cleaning it up until we get it blended and looking weathered as we wanted it weathered. Right, so with most things weathering, I do find that what you end up doing is you weather it to the extreme, and a lot of things is a case of coming along and cleaning up like the mass amount of weathering you've done and then getting it to the way you want it. That's what I find most weathering is. We can also use, if you find maybe some slightly stubborn areas, we can get a cotton wool bud, dip that into the thinners as well, and we can give that a rub, and that will really start to clean up certain areas. So that's another method we can use. And we can also come along and do this to, if you remember the cockpit area, we also applied this filter there, which we can also clean up. I've got another one here, just to show you again. Dip into the thinners, make sure your brush is nice and clean. That's the whole key to this, is keeping your brush nice and clean, and keep kind of cleaning it up as you go along, so as you clean this actual ejector seat of the filter we've done, and just leaving behind enough so we're satisfied, so we're happy, and it's all blended in nicely. So what I'll do is I'll do the rest of this off camera, as well as the rest of the cockpit, and when everything's dry I'll get back to you with the next little bit. Now that our, what colour was it called again, the Zandri Dust is now dried, what we want to do, we're going to come in with a wash and kind of weather this up and start to bring it alive, and I'm using the Earth shade again. Right, and we're just going to apply this, and hopefully, as you'll see, is it will start to liven up, and hopefully go into those nice little rivets that we made as well, and those little creases as well that we did on this will hopefully kind of be highlighted a bit more now, and just bring this to life. Alright, which hopefully, as you can see from the difference between the top and the bottom, it just starts to add a bit more life. But as I say, once that, we've got to let that dry before we see how good that is. And we can just do the same here. A bit too much on the paintbrush there. And what this will do is, because you might have noticed that I use quite a I use quite a light colour for something that, from the reference photos I've seen, is quite a sort of a dark brown kind of colour going on. And what this wash is doing is, as you can see, it's just darkening up that light colour I used. Right. And what you can do, you could maybe in areas of where there's creases or potential shadows, maybe just let's get some more sort of wash in there. Maybe kind of make it so it just enhances these shadows like I've done there. I've got a bit of a pool there and just down there. That's going to make that look all nice and shadowy. And we could probably do the same on the front here, because I mean, we did scratch build this and it's not like resin or photo etch or something. I mean, we need to try and get a bit more life into this. So I'm going to try and play around with painting in like shadows and stuff. Darken this up. And there we go. We just need to let that now dry, and you'll see the results of that in a bit.